Standing at the altar in my black tuxedo, I frantically checked my phone as Jessica began her walk down the aisle. The two front pew seats reserved for my parents remained glaringly empty. My heart sank as I saw Sarah's latest Instagram post, a beach selfie from Hawaii, with mom and dad captioned, "Best family vacation ever." The officiant cleared his throat, asking if anyone objected to our union. At that exact moment, my phone buzzed with mom's text. "Sorry, honey. Sarah really needed this trip after her breakup. Your wedding seemed a bit trivial compared to her emotional state. We'll celebrate later." I stood there frozen, staring at that text message while my bride continued her graceful approach. Jessica looked radiant in her flowing white dress, her smile bright with joy until she noticed my expression. The wedding march played on, but all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. How could they do this to me? How could my own parents choose a beach vacation over their son's wedding day? David, my best friend and groomsman, stepped closer and whispered, "Everything all right, man?" I forced myself to pocket the phone and focus on Jessica's face. She deserved better than having her special day ruined by my family's betrayal. When she reached me, I took her hands and tried to push down the anger building in my chest. The ceremony proceeded, but I felt hollow inside. Every time I glanced at those empty seats, shame washed over me. Jessica's parents, the Thompsons, had flown in from Oregon and filled their entire section with aunts, uncles, and cousins. Their support made my family's absence even more painful. I caught Mrs. Thompson shooting concerned glances at the vacant spots where my parents should have been sitting. During the vows, I struggled to concentrate on Jessica's beautiful words about building a life together. All I could think about was Sarah's Instagram post. The timestamp showed she'd uploaded it just 20 minutes before our ceremony began. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a punch to the gut. They weren't even trying to hide their choice. At the reception, guests kept asking about my family. "Where are your parents?" became the question that haunted every conversation. David jumped in repeatedly with vague explanations about family emergencies, but I could see the confusion in people's eyes. Some relatives from Jessica's side attempted to fill the emotional void, giving extra speeches and toasts to compensate for the missing family presence. I escaped to the bathroom and called my parents' number, straight to voicemail. Dad's gruff voice played back, "You've reached Robert and Linda. We're probably out having an adventure. Leave a message." The casual tone felt like a slap across my face. I tried Mom's cell phone. Same result. They'd clearly turned off their phones to avoid dealing with the consequences of their decision. The wedding photographer approached me later with obvious discomfort. "I'm having trouble with some of the family shots," she explained gently. "Should I crop out the empty spaces at your family table, or would you prefer different arrangements?" The professional way she handled it somehow made everything worse. Even strangers could see how abandoned I looked. During our first dance, Jessica whispered in my ear, "I'm so sorry about your parents. We'll figure this out together." Her kindness made me love her even more. But it also deepened my fury at my family. How dare they put her in this position? How dare they make her wedding day about their drama? Later that evening, I discovered the final insult. While going through congratulations cards, I found an envelope from my bank. Inside was a statement showing a withdrawal from my old college savings account. The account I'd never touched, saving it for our future home down payment. $5,000 had been transferred out 3 days ago. The same amount Sarah had posted about needing for her healing journey in Hawaii. They'd literally stolen from me to fund their vacation during my wedding. Our honeymoon in the Colorado mountains should have been magical. Instead, I found myself checking Sarah's Instagram obsessively, while Jessica tried to enjoy the scenic views from our cabin balcony. Every post felt like salt in an open wound. Pictures of tropical drinks, sunset dinners, and family bonding moments that should have happened after my wedding reception. Jessica noticed my distraction on our second day. "Martin, you need to talk to someone about this." she said, setting down her coffee mug on the rustic wooden table. "This is eating you alive, and frankly, it's hurting me too. This is supposed to be our special time." She was right, and her honesty hit hard. I'd been so consumed with my family's betrayal that I was neglecting my new wife during what should have been the happiest week of our lives. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this went deeper than just missing one event. This felt like a pattern I'd been blind to for years. I called Aunt Margaret Mom's older sister who lived in Phoenix. She'd always been the straight shooter in our family, never sugarcoating anything. When I explained what happened, her long silence spoke volumes. "Martin, honey," she finally said with a heavy sigh, "I need to tell you something I probably should have said years ago. This Hawaii trip wasn't some last-minute emergency. Linda called me 6 weeks ago asking for advice about conflicting events. She knew exactly when your wedding was scheduled." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean she knew?" "Sarah booked that Hawaiian resort back in January, right after you sent out your save-the-date cards. She specifically chose those dates, Martin. Your mother was torn up about it, but your father insisted family loyalty meant supporting Sarah through her crisis. The breakup with her boyfriend was real, but the timing of this trip was calculated. The manipulation was breathtaking in its cruelty. Sarah had deliberately planned this conflict to test where she ranked in our parents' priorities. And I'd lost." Margaret continued, "Your father kept saying you were settled and happy with Jessica's family, but Sarah needed them more. He convinced your mother that you'd understand because you're the responsible one. I told Linda she was making a terrible mistake, but she wouldn't listen. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence on our cabin's deck. Jessica came over and wrapped her arms around me from behind. "What did your aunt say?" she asked softly. When I explained the conversation, Jessica's reaction was swift and fierce. "That's absolutely unforgivable," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "Sarah manipulated them, and they chose her manipulation over your happiness. This isn't about family loyalty. This is about enabling toxic behavior." I spent the rest of our honeymoon researching the family dynamics I'd ignored for years. Looking back at childhood memories with fresh eyes, I saw the pattern Margaret had tried to hint at. Sarah's tears always trumped my achievements. Her problems always overshadowed my successes. When I'd graduated summa cum laude from engineering school, the family dinner celebration got canceled because Sarah was upset about not getting into law school with her mediocre grades. The most devastating discovery came from Carol, a family friend who owned the local bakery. When I called to thank her for the wedding gift she'd sent, she accidentally revealed the lie my parents had spread around town. "Oh, Martin," Carol said with obvious discomfort, "I heard you uninvited your parents because of some family disagreement. I'm so glad that wasn't true. Family is everything you know." "What?" I nearly dropped the phone. "I didn't uninvite anyone." The awkward silence stretched before Carol backtracked frantically. "Oh dear, I must have misunderstood something. Maybe someone got their wires crossed." But the damage was done. My parents hadn't just abandoned my wedding. They'd actively lied to our community, painting me as the villain who'd caused family drama. People in my hometown thought I was the problem. As Jessica and I drove back home from Colorado, she reached over and took my hand. "Whatever you decide to do about this, I support you completely," she said. "But Martin, you can't let them rewrite history. You can't let Sarah's manipulation tactics win." I squeezed her hand, feeling grateful for her unwavering support. But I also felt something else growing inside me. Something cold and determined. If my family wanted to play games with manipulation and lies, maybe it was time they learned the consequences of underestimating the responsible one. 6 months passed peacefully. Jessica and I settled into our new home, a cozy 3-bedroom colonial in a quiet neighborhood outside Denver. My promotion to senior project manager at Morrison Engineering came through, bringing both recognition and a substantial salary increase to $95,000 annually. Life felt stable and bright, exactly what we'd hoped to build together. Then Sarah showed up unannounced on a Saturday morning in March. I was installing new shelving in our garage when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw my sister standing on our front porch, wearing designer sunglasses and a bright yellow sundress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her left hand was positioned prominently on her hip, showcasing an enormous diamond engagement ring that caught the morning sunlight like a disco ball. Jessica answered the door while I hung back curious about this unexpected visit. "Sarah," Jessica said with careful politeness, "what brings you by?" "I have the most amazing news to share with my big brother," Sarah gushed, pushing past Jessica into our living room. She spun around dramatically, thrusting her hand forward. "Tyler proposed. We're getting married." I emerged from the garage, wiping grease off my hands with an old towel. "Congratulations," I said flatly. "When did this happen?" "Last weekend, at the most romantic little restaurant in Malibu," Sarah gushed, launching into an elaborate story about candlelit tables, violinists, and Tyler getting down on one knee in front of the entire dining room. Tyler was a struggling musician. She'd been dating for 8 months, a nice enough guy who bartended at an upscale Denver club to pay his bills while pursuing his dreams of musical stardom. Mom and Dad are absolutely thrilled. Sarah continued settling herself on our new sofa without invitation. "We're planning the most incredible wedding for this October. A destination ceremony in Napa Valley, followed by a reception for 300 guests. Tyler's going to write original music for our first dance, and I've already found the perfect dress from a designer in New York." Jessica and I exchanged glances. The timeline felt suspiciously rushed, and the extravagant plans raised obvious questions about funding. Sarah had never been particularly good with money management, frequently calling our parents for bailouts from various financial predicaments. "That sounds lovely," Jessica said carefully. "Have you set a budget for all these plans?" Sarah waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, money isn't an issue. Mom and Dad are helping, of course, but we'll need some additional family support to make everything perfect." She turned toward me with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. "That's actually why I'm here, Martin. I was hoping you could help make my dream wedding come true." The request hit me like a cold slap. After everything that had happened after missing my wedding entirely, she wanted me to fund hers. "What exactly are you asking, Sarah?" "Well," she began, her voice taking on the wheedling tone I remembered from childhood. "The total cost is going to be around $80,000 for everything we want. Mom and Dad can cover about half, but we need someone to bridge the gap for the rest. Since your wedding was so modest, I thought maybe you'd saved money that could go towards something really special." The casual cruelty of that comment knocked the wind out of me. Our wedding had been beautiful but simple, focused on family and friends rather than extravagant displays. Calling it modest in that dismissive tone felt like she was minimizing the entire day they'd already ruined. "Let me understand this correctly," I said slowly. "You want me to give you $40,000 for a wedding after you and our parents skipped mine to go to Hawaii?" Sarah's expression shifted to wounded innocence. "That's not fair, Martin. Hawaii was a therapeutic necessity. I was going through an emotional crisis after my breakup with Kevin. Mom and Dad were being supportive during a difficult time in my life. Your wedding was just one day, but my healing process was ongoing." Jessica stepped forward, her voice sharp with controlled anger. "Just one day, Sarah, that was the most important day of our lives, and your family chose to abandon it for a beach vacation." "It wasn't abandonment." Sarah protested, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "It was prioritizing mental health and family support. Martin's always been self-sufficient. He doesn't need our parents the way I do." The manipulation was breathtaking. In Sarah's version of reality, she was the victim who deserved endless support, while I was somehow selfish for expecting my parents at my own wedding. But what stunned me more was discovering she'd already made promises based on assumptions about my cooperation. Besides, Sarah continued, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, Tyler's already put deposits down on several vendors based on our budget projections. The caterer, the photographer, the band. If we can't cover those costs, he'll be financially ruined. His credit will be destroyed. I felt a chill run down my spine. Tyler put down deposits assuming I was paying. Sarah's silence was answer enough. She told her fiancé that her brother was funding nearly half their wedding without ever asking me. Tyler, who seemed like a decent guy caught up in Sarah's manipulative web, was now financially exposed because of her lies. I can't believe you did that to him, I said, genuinely appalled. You've put Tyler in debt based on a promise I never made. I was confident family would come through, Sarah said, her tears turning on like a faucet. I know you love me, Martin. I know you want me to be happy. This wedding means everything to me, and you have the means to help. As if on cue, my phone rang. Dad's number appeared on the screen. Sarah smiled triumphantly. They're probably calling to talk about the wedding funding arrangements. I answered the call, putting it on speaker without warning Sarah. Hi, Dad. Martin's son? Dad's voice boomed through our living room. I hope you're sitting down because I have the most wonderful news. Sarah's engaged to that nice young man Tyler, and they're planning a spectacular wedding celebration. Yes, she's here telling us about it right now. Excellent. Then she's already explained how the family's going to come together to support this momentous occasion. Your mother and I are contributing what we can from our retirement savings. But as the successful son with the engineering career, we know you'll want to be the primary financial supporter for your sister's special day. The presumption was staggering. They'd already decided how much I should contribute without consulting me. In their minds, my role in the family was to be the silent provider funding Sarah's dreams while accepting whatever scraps of attention they chose to give me. Actually, Dad, I haven't agreed to anything, I said firmly. The silence on the phone stretched uncomfortably before Dad's tone shifted to disappointment. Martin, this is about family loyalty. Sarah's your only sister. This wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event that will bring our whole family together in celebration. Surely you understand the importance of supporting family during life's most significant moments. The irony was so thick, I could taste it. They were lecturing me about supporting family during significant moments while sitting in the living room of the couple whose wedding they'd abandoned for a Hawaiian vacation. Jessica caught my eye and shook her head slightly. Her message was clear: don't let them guilt you into this. I need to think about it, I said finally. Of course, son. Dad, replied, his voice brightening. Take all the time you need. Just remember that Tyler's already made commitments based on our family's financial support. We wouldn't want to let him down. After hanging up, Sarah looked at me with hopeful expectation. So you'll help? I'll give you my answer soon, I said, walking toward the front door and opening it meaningfully. Sarah gathered her purse and stood, but paused at the threshold. Martin, I really hope you'll do the right thing here. Family should support family. It's what Mom and Dad would want. After she left, Jessica and I sat in stunned silence. The audacity was breathtaking, but what bothered me more was the systematic way they were manipulating Tyler into financial jeopardy. He seemed like a genuinely good person who'd gotten caught up in Sarah's web of entitlement and family dysfunction. That evening, I called a lawyer. Thanksgiving dinner invitation arrived in November, 3 months after I'd declined to fund Sarah's wedding. The formal card featured a photo of our childhood home decorated with autumn leaves signed with "Love, Mom and Dad" in Mom's careful handwriting. Despite everything that had happened, part of me hoped this was a genuine attempt at reconciliation. Jessica was skeptical. This feels like a setup, Martin, she warned, as we drove through the familiar streets of my hometown. They haven't spoken to you since you refused to pay for the wedding. Why reach out now? I gripped the steering wheel tighter, watching the houses I'd grown up around pass by the window. Maybe they've had time to think about everything, Maybe they realize how badly they handled the wedding situation. But as soon as we walked through the front door, I knew Jessica had been right. The atmosphere felt orchestrated, artificial. Mom rushed over with overly bright enthusiasm, hugging us both and chattering about how wonderful it was to have the whole family together. Dad emerged from the kitchen wearing his best sweater, the one he usually saved for church or important occasions. Sarah appeared at the top of the staircase, descending slowly like she was making a grand entrance. Her engagement ring caught the light from the chandelier, and she'd clearly timed her appearance for maximum dramatic effect. Tyler followed behind her, looking uncomfortable but polite. "Martin, Jessica," Sarah exclaimed, embracing us both with theatrical warmth. "I'm so happy you could make it. This is going to be such a special day for our family." The dinner conversation felt forced and strange. Mom kept steering discussion towards safe topics like the weather and local news, while Dad made awkward jokes that fell flat. Sarah dominated most of the conversation with wedding planning updates, describing her dress fittings and venue tastings in exhaustive detail. Tyler contributed when prompted, but mostly remained quiet, occasionally shooting me apologetic glances. After dessert, Dad cleared his throat and announced, "We'd like everyone to join us in the study for a family discussion. Something important we need to share." The study had always been Dad's domain, filled with his engineering textbooks and family photos spanning decades. Mom had arranged chairs in a semicircle facing Dad's desk, where official-looking documents were spread out in neat piles. The setup felt ominously formal. "Kids." Mom began, her voice trembling with emotion. "Your father and I have been doing a lot of thinking about family and legacy and what really matters in life." She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, though I hadn't seen any actual tears. "We've realized how precious family unity is, especially as we get older." Dad picked up the thread smoothly. "We've made some important decisions about our estate planning that we wanted to share with everyone together. Transparency and fairness have always been important values in this family." He lifted a thick document from his desk. "This is our updated will revised last month with the help of our attorney. We want to ensure our legacy supports the family members who demonstrate true loyalty and commitment to family values." My stomach began to sink as I realized where this was headed. "Sarah," Dad continued, "has always shown such dedication to family. She values togetherness, she prioritizes family relationships, and she's built her life around maintaining close connections with the people who matter most." Sarah's face glowed with satisfaction, though she attempted to look modest about the praise. "Martin." Dad's tone shifted slightly. "We love you dearly, son, but we've noticed you've become somewhat independent in recent years, distant from family priorities. Your decision not to support Sarah's wedding really opened our eyes to how your values have changed." The blood rushed to my face as I realized they were about to justify cutting me out of their will by reframing my refusal to fund Sarah's extravagant wedding as evidence of disloyalty. After much consideration, Mom continued tearfully, "We've decided that the family home, the business assets, and the majority of our savings should go to Sarah. She'll be the one to carry on family traditions and maintain the close relationships we've always cherished." Sarah reached over and squeezed Mom's hand supportively, playing her role perfectly. "But we haven't forgotten you, Martin," Dad said, shuffling through the papers. "You'll inherit $50,000 and whatever personal items you'd like from the house. Plus, we know Jessica's family has means, so you'll be fine financially." The assumption about Jessica's family wealth was completely wrong. Her parents were middle-class teachers who'd saved every penny to give their daughter a good education. They weren't wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, but my parents had convinced themselves this lie to justify their decision. "We hope you understand this comes from a place of love," Mom said, fresh tears appearing on cue. "We want to support the family member who truly needs and values our legacy." Uncle Tom and Cousin Jake sat in the corner looking distinctly uncomfortable, with being witnesses to this family financial drama. Aunt Margaret had positioned herself near the window, her disapproval evident in her rigid posture. Sarah finally spoke up. "Martin, I hope you know this doesn't change how much I love you. You'll always be my big brother. It's just that Mom and Dad recognize I need more support to build my future with Tyler." The calculated nature of it all was stunning. They'd turned my refusal to bankroll Sarah's wedding into evidence of my inadequate family loyalty, then used that manufactured justification to redistribute my inheritance to her. It was manipulation on a level I'd never experienced before. But what happened next revealed the true depth of their planning. As the family meeting broke up, I stepped outside for air and accidentally overheard Dad on the phone in the garage. "The reverse mortgage paperwork should be finalized next week," he was saying quietly. "Yes, $80,000 should cover Sarah's wedding costs, plus a little extra for the honeymoon. We can worry about the details later." My blood ran cold. They'd taken out a reverse mortgage on the family home to immediately fund Sarah's wedding, meaning they'd essentially borrowed against my former inheritance to pay for the very event they'd expected me to finance. They were trapping themselves in debt while giving Sarah everything she wanted. I quietly opened my phone's recording app and captured the rest of Dad's conversation. His casual discussion of financial manipulation and the timeline of their planning made it clear this had been orchestrated for months. They weren't just giving Sarah my inheritance. They were destroying their own financial security to do it. Walking back into the house, I saw my family gathered around Sarah celebrating their successful manipulation. Tyler looked increasingly uncomfortable, but Sarah glowed with triumph. She'd gotten everything she wanted: the wedding funding, the inheritance, and the complete marginalization of her brother. But as I watched them congratulate each other on their cleverness, I realized they'd made a critical mistake. They'd assumed I would quietly accept this betrayal the same way I'd quietly accepted everything else over the years. They were wrong. Spring brought exciting developments at Morrison Engineering. My innovative design for the municipal water treatment plant had exceeded all performance expectations, earning recognition throughout the industry. The system I'd developed increased filtration efficiency by 35%, while reducing operational costs, and the city was showcasing it as a model for other communities nationwide. My patent application for the filtration innovation was progressing through the approval process, with our company's legal team confident about success. Mr. Morrison had begun discussing partnership opportunities, recognizing that my technical contributions were bringing substantial value to the firm. At 32 years old, I was on track to become the youngest partner in the company's history. The annual Christmas party at the downtown hotel felt like a celebration of everything I'd accomplished. Jennifer, my project partner, raised her glass during dinner and announced, "Here's to Martin's brilliant engineering mind and the innovations that are putting Morrison Engineering on the national map." The applause from my colleagues felt genuine and earned. Mr. Morrison stood up and added, "Martin represents the future of this company. His technical excellence and dedication to innovation embody everything we want to achieve in the engineering field." I was basking in the professional recognition when I spotted three familiar figures entering the hotel ballroom. Sarah, Mom, and Dad had somehow obtained invitations to our private company event. They approached our table with confident smiles, as if they belonged there. "Martin," Dad boomed, extending his hand for a hearty handshake. "We heard about your big success and wanted to come celebrate with you. Hope you don't mind family crashing your party." Mr. Morrison, ever the gracious host, immediately invited them to join our table. "Any family of Martin's is welcome here," he said warmly. "You must be very proud of his achievements." "Oh, we absolutely are," Mom gushed. "Martin's always been brilliant with technical things. It runs in the family, actually. His father was an engineer before he started his construction business." Sarah turned on her charm at full power, engaging my colleagues with questions about the engineering field and expressing fascination with the technical aspects of my work. "I've actually been thinking about pursuing engineering myself," she mentioned casually. The innovative problem-solving really appeals to me. Tyler wasn't with her, I noticed. When Jennifer asked about her fiancé, Sarah's expression briefly tightened before she recovered smoothly. Tyler's busy with his music career tonight. We're both pursuing our individual passions while supporting each other's dreams. Dad spent considerable time talking with Mr. Morrison, sharing stories about our family's supposed engineering legacy and emphasizing Sarah's interest in the field. She's got the same analytical mind as Martin, he claimed. Natural talent for technical problem solving. The evening felt increasingly uncomfortable as my family inserted themselves into my professional success story. They were rewriting our family history, portraying themselves as supportive parents who'd always encouraged my career development. The irony was suffocating, considering they'd never shown interest in my work before it became financially successful and publicly recognized. After the holidays, I returned to work energized and ready to tackle new projects. That optimism lasted exactly 3 days. Mr. Morrison called me into his office on Thursday morning with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Martin, I have some interesting news. Your sister Sarah has expressed serious interest in joining our engineering team." My blood went cold. "Sarah doesn't have an engineering degree, Mr. Morrison. She studied marketing in college and works in real estate." "Yes, I'm aware of that," he said, settling behind his desk. "But your father called in a favor from my late father. Apparently, they served together on some community boards years ago, and your father helped my family through a difficult business situation. I owe him a debt of gratitude." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. This had been planned from the moment they'd appeared at the Christmas party. Sarah's sudden interest in engineering Dad's conversations with Mr. Morrison, the emphasis on family legacy, it had all been preparation for this moment. "I've decided to bring Sarah on as a junior engineer with the understanding that she'll learn on the job while pursuing additional technical education. Your father assured me that family mentorship would accelerate her development." "Mr. Morrison," I said carefully, "with respect, engineering requires specific technical knowledge and training. It's not something someone can learn casually while working on active projects." "I understand your concerns," he replied, "but I'm confident that with your guidance and her natural abilities, she'll develop quickly. Besides, having another family member in the company strengthens our culture of loyalty and commitment." The following Monday, Sarah arrived for her first day wearing a crisp business suit and carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. She'd clearly studied up on engineering terminology over the weekend, dropping technical phrases into conversations without understanding their meaning. Jennifer pulled me aside during lunch. "Martin, I need to ask directly, does your sister actually understand any of the technical aspects of what we're doing here? Because this morning she asked me to explain the difference between static and dynamic water pressure." The situation rapidly deteriorated from there. My ongoing projects were reassigned to include Sarah as a learning partner, which meant I had to spend time explaining basic engineering concepts instead of focusing on advanced development work. Sarah took detailed notes during every meeting and asked questions that revealed her fundamental lack of technical understanding. Worse, she began claiming credit for collaborative insights and suggestions. During client presentations, she would rephrase my explanations and present them as her own contributions. When I tried to correct the record, Mr. Morrison praised her initiative and encouraged her participation. The breaking point came in February when I discovered my patent application had been mysteriously delayed in the approval process. When I contacted our legal department, they informed me that additional paperwork had been submitted requesting shared credit for the innovation. Sarah Keller submitted documentation claiming significant contribution to the filtration system design, the attorney explained. She provided detailed technical notes and testimony about her involvement in the development process. I was stunned. That's completely false. Sarah wasn't even employed here when I designed that system. She had no involvement whatsoever. "I understand your position, but the documentation is quite thorough. We'll need to sort through the competing claims before the patent can be approved. That evening, I confronted Sarah directly. You're trying to steal my patent. You've provided false documentation claiming credit for work you never did. Sarah's response was calm and calculated. I've been learning about your project and contributing insight since I started working here. Just because my contributions aren't documented in the same way doesn't mean they aren't valuable. Besides, family should support each other's success. This isn't support, Sarah. This is theft. That's a very harsh way to look at collaboration, she replied smoothly. Maybe you've been working alone for so long that you've forgotten how to share credit appropriately. Within 3 months, Sarah had been promoted to associate engineer, despite lacking basic technical competencies. My projects continued being redistributed to include her involvement, and my patent application remained stalled in legal review. Colleagues began treating her as an equal contributor to innovation she couldn't have developed in 100 years. The most devastating realization came when I discovered emails between Sarah and our parents discussing their long-term strategy. While reviewing shared files on the company server, I accidentally accessed a document Sarah had left open containing forwarded family correspondence. Dad's email sent 3 weeks before my wedding laid out their entire plan. Sarah needs a career with real potential, and Martin's success shows that engineering is profitable. If we can get her positioned in his company, she can build on his innovations and develop her own reputation. The timing is perfect because Martin will feel obligated to help family. Mom's response was equally calculated. I agree that Sarah deserves the same opportunities Martin has had. He's always been self-sufficient, but Sarah needs our active support to reach her potential. Getting her established in engineering while Martin's star is rising makes perfect sense. They'd been planning to exploit my professional success from before my wedding day. The Hawaii trip, the inheritance changes, and now this systematic theft of my career achievements, it had all been orchestrated to transfer everything I'd built to Sarah while making it seem like natural family support. But as I sat in my office that evening staring at the evidence of their manipulation, I realized something important. They'd been so focused on stealing from me that they'd forgotten to cover their tracks properly. Sarah's false patent claims the documented timeline of her employment versus my innovation development, the emails outlining their strategy. It was all evidence of fraud. They'd underestimated the responsible one for the last time. Jessica found me in our home office on a Saturday morning in April, surrounded by printed emails, bank statements, recorded phone conversations, and legal documents spread across every available surface. I'd been working methodically for weeks, building an airtight case, documenting 3 years of systematic family betrayal and manipulation. This is everything, I told her, gesturing at the organized piles of evidence. Wedding abandonment, inheritance theft, patent fraud, false employment, claims I have documentation for every single lie and manipulation. She picked up one of the printed email chains, scanning the casual way my parents discussed exploiting my success for Sarah's benefit. Martin, this is incredible and incredibly disturbing. They'd been planning this for years. The timeline I'd constructed was damning. Starting 18 months before my wedding, my parents had begun discussing how to redirect Martin's advantages towards Sarah's needs. The Hawaii trip had been deliberately scheduled to conflict with my wedding. The inheritance changes had been planned before I'd ever refused to fund Sarah's wedding. The engineering job placement had been orchestrated from the moment my patent application showed financial promise. Every betrayal I'd experienced had been premeditated, calculated manipulation designed to transfer my achievements to Sarah while maintaining the illusion of family loyalty. "What are you going to do with all this?" Jessica asked, settling into the chair beside my desk. I pulled out my laptop and opened a video editing program I'd been learning to use. "I'm going to tell the truth, all of it, in detail, with evidence." Over the next 2 weeks, I created a comprehensive video documentary Not a rambling complaint or emotional outburst, but a methodical presentation of facts supported by documentation. I included audio recordings of phone conversations, screenshots of text messages and emails, bank statements showing financial manipulation, and timeline graphics showing the coordination between different betrayals. The video was structured like a case presentation, walking viewers through each element of the systematic manipulation while displaying supporting evidence. I included context about family favoritism patterns, financial exploitation methods, and professional fraud tactics. My tone remained calm and factual throughout, letting the evidence speak for itself. Aunt Margaret provided additional support when I reached out to her. "Martin, I've been waiting for years for someone to call out this behavior," she said during our video conference call. "Your parents have been enabling Sarah's manipulation since childhood, and it's only gotten worse as she's gotten older. She shared family history I'd never known about. Your grandmother, Rose, has been deeply troubled by all this. She's 84 years old and sharp as a tack, and she's been documenting concerning patterns in family behavior for months. She'll support you if you decide to go public. Cousin Jake offered to help with additional evidence gathering. I've watched this train wreck developing for years," he told me during a coffee meeting. "Sarah's been bragging to family members about manipulating your parents and taking advantage of your success. She thinks she's untouchable." The most surprising ally turned out to be Tyler, Sarah's former fiancé. When I reached out to him, I discovered that he'd broken off their engagement after learning about the financial manipulation surrounding their wedding planning. "Sarah lied to me about everything," Tyler explained during our phone conversation. "She told me her family was wealthy and could easily afford an expensive wedding. When I started receiving bills for deposits I'd never approved and vendors I'd never hired, I realized something was seriously wrong." He'd conducted his own investigation into Sarah's finances and discovered a pattern of debt and financial irresponsibility that she'd hidden from him throughout their relationship. "She was planning to use me as another source of funding while milking your family for everything she could get." Tyler agreed to provide testimony about Sarah's false claims and financial manipulation tactics, adding another layer of credibility to my case. On a Tuesday morning in May, I uploaded the 45-minute video to multiple platforms simultaneously. The title was simple: 3 Years of Family Betrayal, a Complete Documentation. I'd optimized it for search engines and social media sharing, including relevant tags and descriptions. Within 6 hours, my phone started ringing constantly. The video was being shared rapidly across social media platforms, with viewers expressing outrage at the systematic manipulation it documented. Comments poured in from people sharing similar experiences with family favoritism and financial exploitation. Sarah called first, screaming incoherently about lawsuits and family destruction. "How could you humiliate our family like this?" she shrieked. "You've ruined everything Tyler left me. My friends are asking horrible questions, and now everyone thinks I'm some kind of manipulative monster." Dad's call came an hour later, his voice shaking with rage. "You've crossed a line that can never be uncrossed, Martin. This kind of public family embarrassment is unforgivable. We raised you better than this vindictive behavior." "You raised me to be responsible and honest," I replied calmly. "I'm being both. Everything in that video is documented fact." "Those were private family matters," he shouted. "You had no right to air our business publicly. You made them public when you lied to my wedding guests about why you weren't there," I responded. "You made them public when you manipulated my employer into hiring Sarah fraudulently. You made them public when you stole my patent application." Mom's call was more manipulative, filled with tears and pleas for family unity. "Martin, please take down that horrible video. We can work through these issues privately as a family. Sarah's getting death threats from strangers on the internet." "The same way we worked through the wedding situation privately," I asked. "The same way we worked through the inheritance changes privately. You had years to address these issues honestly. You chose manipulation instead." The professional consequences for Sarah were swift and severe. Mr. Morrison called me into his office the day after the video was released, looking deeply embarrassed about the entire situation. "Martin, I owe you an enormous apology," he said sincerely. "I had no idea about the false documentation and fraudulent claims your sister submitted. Our legal department has reviewed her employment file and patent applications, and we're terminating her position immediately." The investigation into the patent theft revealed the extent of Sarah's fraud. She'd forged technical documents, fabricated contribution records, and submitted false testimony about her involvement in my innovations. The legal department estimated that properly pursuing fraud charges could result in felony prosecution. "We're restoring full credit for your innovations and fast-tracking the patent approval process," Mr. Morrison continued. "Additionally, I'd like to offer you a junior partnership position effective immediately. Your technical contributions and professional integrity are exactly what this company needs." But the most significant response came from an unexpected source. A local news reporter contacted me about investigating patterns of elder financial exploitation after seeing my video. My parents' reverse mortgage situation combined with Sarah's manipulation tactics fit a larger pattern of family financial abuse that was becoming increasingly common. "Your documentation is incredibly thorough," the reporter explained. "We'd like to do a feature story about how financial manipulation works within families using your case as an example. Would you be willing to participate?" The news coverage brought additional attention to the video, but also provided educational value for other families experiencing similar manipulation. Financial advisors and family therapists began sharing my story as an example of how to recognize and document systematic abuse. Within 2 weeks, my video had been viewed over 500,000 times across multiple platforms. The response was overwhelmingly supportive, with viewers praising my methodical approach to exposing the truth and encouraging others to stand up against family manipulation. Sarah's social media presence collapsed as friends and acquaintances began questioning her past behavior with fresh eyes. Her real estate career suffered as clients worried about her integrity and honesty in professional dealings. Tyler publicly thanked me for helping him escape a financially devastating marriage. Most importantly, my parents finally faced consequences for their enabling behavior. Their reverse mortgage situation, now publicly exposed, became a cautionary tale that financial advisors used to warn other elderly clients about predatory family manipulation. As I watched my family's house of lies collapse around them, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: the satisfaction of standing up for myself and winning. 6 months after releasing my video, I stood in the nursery of our new home, assembling a crib, while Jessica organized baby clothes by size. The pregnancy had been a wonderful surprise, bringing hope and joy that helped heal the wounds left by years of family manipulation. My partnership at Morrison Engineering had exceeded all expectations. The company's reputation for innovation and integrity had attracted major new clients, and my restored patent was generating substantial licensing revenue. We'd bought a larger house in a better school district, planning for the family we were building on foundation of honesty and mutual respect. The doorbell rang on a Sunday afternoon in October, and I found my parents standing on our front porch, looking older and more fragile than I remembered. Dad's construction business had struggled after the news coverage brought scrutiny to his professional practices, and Mom's health had suffered under the stress of their financial situation. "Martin," Mom said quietly, "we were hoping we could talk with you and Jessica. There are things we need to say that are long overdue." Jessica appeared beside me, 7 months pregnant and radiating protective strength. "Come in," she said simply. "But we need complete honesty from both of you." They settled carefully on our new sofa, looking around at the comfortable home we'd built together. Dad cleared his throat several times before beginning to speak. "Son, your mother and I have spent a lot of time thinking about the mistakes we made. Real mistakes, not just disagreements or misunderstandings. We enabled Sarah's manipulation for years," Mom continued, her voice shaking. We told ourselves we were helping her because she seemed more fragile, but really we were just avoiding conflict by giving her whatever she wanted. Dad nodded heavily. The inheritance changes, the wedding funding, the job manipulation. We let ourselves get pulled into schemes that hurt you while telling ourselves we were being fair. We weren't being fair. We were being cowardly. The admission was startling in its directness. For the first time in years, they were taking responsibility without deflecting blame or making excuses. Sarah's in therapy now, Mom explained. Real therapy, not just crisis counseling. She's working on understanding why she developed these patterns of manipulation and entitlement. It's been very difficult for her to face the truth about her behavior. The reverse mortgage is being resolved, Dad added. We're selling the house and moving into a smaller place. Most of the proceeds will go toward paying back what we took from you unfairly. It won't cover everything, but it's a start. Jessica leaned forward slightly. What about Sarah? Is she taking responsibility for her actions? She wrote you a letter, Mom said, pulling an envelope from her purse. She wanted to deliver it personally, but her therapist suggested written communication might be more appropriate for now. I opened the letter with skeptical curiosity. Sarah's handwriting filled 3 pages with what appeared to be genuine remorse and accountability. She acknowledged specific instances of manipulation, apologized for the patent theft and professional fraud, and outlined steps she was taking to rebuild her life on honest foundations. She's working as a counselor now, Dad explained, at a nonprofit that helps families dealing with financial abuse. Her firsthand experience with manipulation tactics makes her effective at recognizing the warning signs. The transformation seemed almost impossible to believe. Sarah had been so committed to her patterns of entitlement and manipulation that I'd assumed she was incapable of change. But the letter demonstrated genuine insight into the harm she'd caused and concrete actions she was taking to make amends. Over the following months, our family began a slow process of healing built on accountability rather than denial. Sarah's therapy progress was measured and genuine, focused on understanding her behavior, rather than just apologizing for it. She paid back the money she'd cost Tyler and contributed to reimbursing the expenses her fraud had created. My parents attended family financial counseling to understand how their enabling had damaged both their children. They learned to recognize manipulation tactics and developed strategies for supporting family members without enabling destructive behavior. Grandma Rose, now 85, moved in with Jessica and me during her final months. Her sharp mind and loving heart provided wisdom that helped bridge the gaps between family members who were learning to relate honestly for the first time. Your response to their betrayal probably saved this family, she told me one evening as we watched the sunset from our back porch. Sometimes people need consequences before they can see clearly. The baby arrived in March, a healthy daughter we named Hope. Holding her in the hospital surrounded by family members who were finally learning to love without manipulation, I felt a peace I'd never experienced before. Sarah visited the hospital and asked to hold her niece. Watching her gentle interaction with Hope, I saw someone genuinely trying to become a better person. Her transformation wasn't perfect or complete, but it was real and ongoing. Tyler had found happiness with someone new, a fellow musician who shared his values and artistic vision. He sent a congratulations card when Hope was born, thanking me again for helping him escape a destructive relationship before marriage made it more complicated. The local news story about family financial exploitation had inspired policy changes in elder care oversight and financial protection services. My experience became part of training materials used to help professionals recognize and address family manipulation patterns. But the most meaningful outcome was the family we were building with Hope. Jessica and I had learned from my parents' mistakes, committed to raising our daughter with love that included appropriate boundaries and consequences. We would support her dreams without enabling entitlement, encourage her independence, without abandoning her during challenges. 1 year after Hope's birth, we hosted Easter dinner at our home. My parents, now living modestly but honestly, brought homemade gifts and age-appropriate toys. Sarah arrived with her new boyfriend, a social worker, who shared her commitment to helping others heal from family trauma. As I watched 4 generations of our family enjoying a meal built on truth rather than manipulation, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. Standing up for myself had been painful and difficult, but it had ultimately created space for authentic relationships to develop. The responsible one had learned that real responsibility sometimes meant refusing to enable destructive behavior, even when that meant facing temporary conflict. True family love required accountability, honesty, and the courage to demand better from people you care about. Hope laughed from her high chair, surrounded by grandparents and an aunt who were finally learning to love without conditions or manipulation. In her innocent joy, I saw the future we were building together, a family legacy based on truth, respect, and genuine care for each other's well-being. Sometimes fighting back means fighting for everyone, including those who wronged you. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to participate in patterns that hurt everyone involved. And sometimes the responsible thing to do is demand that responsibility from others too. Have you ever had to stand up to family manipulation or favoritism? How do you think families can love each other while still maintaining healthy boundaries? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more content about standing up for yourself and building healthy relationships. And please share this with anyone who might benefit from hearing about the power of truth and accountability in family dynamics. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it encourages you to stand up for what's right in your own life, even when it's difficult.